Hello and welcome to The Print. This is Akanksha Mishra and you're watching Scientifix, where I will be taking you through this week's top science news from across the world. First up, research published in Nature Communications suggests that Australia's native bee species, especially the ones that live in plant stems, may be especially vulnerable to rising temperatures. The study analyzed heat tolerance in 95 bee species across eastern Australia and found that nesting behavior strongly influences the bee's ability to cope with warming. The scientists discovered that ground nesting bees can escape extreme heat by retreating into cooler underground burrows. But stem nesting species have little protection because they are overground, and thin plant stems provide limited insulation from the heat. Bees that nest in wood cavities showed intermediate levels of risk. The study also found that tropical bee species living closer to the equator face greater climate threats, despite often having higher heat tolerance because they already inhabit extremely warm environments. Next up, a study in Nature magazine found that plagues were killing prehistoric hunter gatherers 5,500 years ago, thousands of years before the rise of cities or agriculture. An international team analyzed ancient DNA from human remains found at four cemeteries near Lake Baikal in East Siberia. And they identified previously unknown strains of Yersinia pestis, the bacterium that causes plague. They detected plague DNA in 18 of 46 individuals studied, suggesting that the disease caused significant outbreaks in these small communities. Radiocarbon dating and archaeological evidence indicated that many victims, including children and other family members, died within a short period. The findings challenge previous assumptions that early plague strains were relatively mild because they lacked the genetic adaptations needed for flea-borne transmission. Scientists also identified a unique toxin producing superantigen in the ancient strains, which may have triggered severe immune responses and increased mortality. Next up, the world's highest consuming 10% of people are responsible for environmental damage worth an estimated 1.7 trillion to 5.7 trillion dollars annually, based on a study published in Communication Sustainability. Researchers calculated the costs associated with four planetary boundaries: climate change, biodiversity loss, nutrient pollution, and freshwater use, and found that the damage caused by this group exceeds current international commitments for climate action and biodiversity conservation combined. Biodiversity loss accounted for the largest share of this damage bill, contributing 47 to 56% of the total costs, followed by climate change at 36 to 45%. The researchers note that these estimates are conservative, covering only 4 of the 9 planetary boundaries and excluding emissions linked to investments. Most importantly, the study said that the amount of damage is at par with the gap in funding that's needed to address the climate and environmental crisis. It illustrates the need to implement polluter pays principles to high consuming groups. Finally, scientists have developed a new way to unravel the complex evolutionary history of crops with multiple sets of chromosomes, using mobile DNA sequences as genetic timestamps. The method focuses on long terminal repeat retrotransposons. These are pieces of DNA that can copy and insert themselves throughout a genome. Because these elements expand at different times during evolution, they leave behind distinct patterns that help researchers identify subgenomes that are inherited from different ancestral species. Applying this technique to the cultivated strawberry, which has 8 sets of chromosomes, researchers reconstructed its evolutionary history without relying on known ancestor species. The analysis identified 4 distinct subgenomes and revealed that the modern strawberry formed through 3 separate genome merging events about 4.2 million and 0.8 million years ago. The findings challenged previous ideas about strawberries' origins, and they could also improve breeding efforts in other complex crops such as wheat, cotton, or sugarcane. That's all we have for you today. Thank you for tuning into The Print.